So we're going to make a very simple and expandable interact system, and we'll start off by making a door open and close. Walk up, can't go in. If you open it, now you can, and you can close it. It's very simple, very expandable. Anybody can follow this tutorial. Let's get started. Alright, so I'll start out with the first person template project. You can follow along if you're a third person project as well. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder for our door. And I'm going to create a blueprint actor. I call it door BP. Let's open it up. So we're going to need a couple things. We're going to add a static mesh for the door frame. And we're going to add another static mesh for the door itself. So door. Oops. We're just going to drag this mesh into place, just like that. Now, if you're using the default template door, you can see that it already has its pivot point in the corner over there. And we need that so that when we rotate the door, it will open from there. Okay, we need two variables. We're going to have a bool called isOpen, and we're going to have a float called openAngle. The openAngle float is going to be used to set the amount we want the door to be able to open. So we'll do 120 for 120 degrees. And let's compile. And let's go to the event graph. We don't need any of this. And actually what we need to do is let's create an interface. Go to blueprint interface, and we'll type interact. So you're going to want to put this interface on any interactable object you have. It's going to be very useful. And we'll just have one function for now, and we'll call it interact. That's it. Compile, close out. Now under your door BP, go to class settings, and where it says implemented interfaces, click add, and then find the interface we just made, interact. Come to the left here and you'll see this interface column, and it has our interact function. Right click on it and press implement event. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to have the player interact with the door, and it's going to check whether it's open or it's not, and depending on what it is, it's going to rotate the door in the proper direction. So let's bring out isOpen, do a boolean, and I'm going to put not for not boolean. So the door is not open. If that is true, if the door is not open, we are going to add a timeline. Let's call it open door timeline, TL. And we're going to use the timeline to open the door over a period of time. Let's go into it, and for track, we're going to do a float track. Let's call it alpha, and you'll see why in just a minute. And for length, that is the length of time you want it to take for the door to open. I'm going to set it to 1 second. And then in this graph here, we need to add 2 keys. So let's add key, and at 0 seconds, the value will be 0. And then at 1 second, the value will be 1. It will make sense in just a second. So right here it says alpha. The reason why it's called alpha is because we're going to lerp two floats. And it has an alpha pin. So what a lerp does is you put two values, one for A and one for B, and when the value is 0, it's going to be A, and when the value is 1, it's going to be B. But with the timeline, you have all the values in between 0 and 1, so 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, etc. So for the first value A, we're going to keep it at 0 because it's going to be, that's when it's closed. It's already closed by default. And value B is what it's going to be when it's open. So let's drag out open angle, and we'll set that. So it's going to go from 0 to 120 over a course of 1 second. So our door is called static mesh 1. We'll drag this out. We're going to get relative rotation. So this will be the current rotation that it is. And let's right click and split this struct pen. And where it says return value from our lerp, let's drag out and say make rotator. Plug it into the Z value. And then plug in the X where the X goes and the Y where the Y goes. And then we're going to pull out our door again and set relative rotation. And we're just going to drag this purple thing into this purple thing. And we'll drag from our update. So as this timeline updates and changes this value, it's going to set this relative rotation. Okay. So last thing we need to do here. So if the door is not open, and we interact with the object, we can assume that it's going to be open. So let's set is open to true. And then where it says false, we're going to set is open to false. And then we're going to reverse the timeline so that it closes the door. And that's all we need in our door. Actually, go to static mesh, go to the right properties panel, and we're going to look for our collision. We're going to make sure that visibility is set to block. That's important. That'll come up later. Okay, so that's the door itself is ready. Let's go to our blueprint first person character, or whatever your character is. Open that up, and we're going to do event tick. Means it's going to be called every frame, and we're going to do a line trace. And you'll see the beauty of the setup in a minute. Line trace by channel, trace channel visibility, which is why we just checked the collision. So we want this line trace to come from the direct center of the camera. If you're doing third person, just do it directly from your character, and then do the same as, instead of a first person camera, just do from your character mesh. So drag out first person camera and get world location. Plug that in to start. And then from the camera, get forward vector. So that gets the forward direction. Come here to variables. We're going to create a float for how far we want the line trace to go. So we'll call it trace distance. Compile, and then we'll set the default value to 200. You can play around with that if you'd like to. Where it says get forward vector, we're going to multiply this return value by that distance. and then we got to add this result to this initial start point. So add, and that will be the endpoint. Where it says draw debug type, you can leave that to none if you'd like, or if you'd like to see what it looks like, go to for duration. Now where it says out hit, drag out from it and type in break hit result. Expand. Where it says hit actor, we're going to check if the actor that we hit is something we can interact with. So from hit actor, drag out and type does implement interface. And then where it says interface, just find the one we made, I interact. Returns a bool, so it's either yes or no it does, or it doesn't. And so we'll do a branch. And if it does implement an interface, we're going to set it as a variable. So go to hit actor and promote to variable. And let's call it interact object. If it doesn't implement an interface, we're going to set that interact object to basically nothing. Just like that. So if it does implement interface, it will set that object. If it doesn't, it will set that object to nothing. So it won't do anything. Now, make sure trace distance was set. And now, let's do a keyboard event. And let's do like F. So if the F key is pressed, drag out your interact object, and we're going to see if it is set. So remember, it's set, it isn't set. So if it is set, we're going to right click on it and turn to convert to validated get. Is valid means it's set, is not valid means it's not set. So if it is valid, interact. And now, let's add a collider to this door. Click on the door mesh and add a box collision. If you come up to, then we'll just make it the size of the door. And we'll shrink it down a bit on the x-axis. Compile. Let's go to collision options and we'll change it to custom and we'll set it to block. And since it's parented to our door, when we open the door, it will follow. Now, if we go up to the door and we press F, it opens. And if we press F again, it closes.